everybody, to the 2023 University High School Senior Debate. Over the 43-year history of UHS, this event has become a rite of passage for UHS graduates. As you already see, the seniors have done a tremendous amount of work on this project with hundreds of hours of effort put in to make this successful. Let's give them a round of applause for that. UHS juniors, you are the electorate. Please pay close attention today. Tomorrow, you will be asked to cast your vote for the party that you think won the debate. Voting will take place in room LL8 before school, after school, and during lunch. Votes will be counted at 3:45 p.m. tomorrow. UHS juniors, please vote. Before I introduce our moderator, let me summarize the format of this debate. The debate will have 2 rounds, foreign and domestic. During each round, some questions will be asked by the moderator, others will be inter-party questions. We will have a brief intermission between the 2 rounds. Remember, the seniors are earning a grade for this project. Please have fun and enjoy the proceedings. However, please show respect for the participants. Bells will ring during the course of the debate. If you must leave, please do so quietly. Otherwise, please remain seated until the break between the foreign policy and domestic policy rounds. At the end of the debate, please remain seated for some concluding remarks. Then you will be dismissed to your period for class or to lunch. Before we begin, I would like to give special thanks to the students who serve on the stage crew. They have also spent many hours setting up the auditorium for this event. Without doubt, we would not have this event without them. Thank you deeply. With that said, I would like to now introduce our moderator. Please give a warm UHS welcome to TUSD Superintendent Dr. Gabriel Trujillo. Dr. Trujillo is a lifelong educator in his 25th year of service to public education and his 6th year as district superintendent. In this role, he serves 40,000 students and families, oversees the support of 89 schools and programs, and heads a roster of almost 8,000 employees. During his tenure, Tucson Unified Schools have experienced a dramatic shift in academic improvement and accomplishment. Dr. Trujillo continues to serve the TUSD community and its vision of success, access, and opportunity for all its students. And nowhere is that more apparent than here at UHS. Once more, please welcome Dr. Trujillo to the podium.
Well, good morning. Wow, looks like we've got some issues here. Now, that's a little better. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you. And actually, I think I'm just going to grab it. And to be a part of this absolutely wonderful event, which is a decades-long tradition here at University High School. Number one, I want to thank all of the incredible young leaders here on this stage. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to engage in this absolutely wonderful, not only UHS tradition, but American tradition of dialogue and debate. Let us give them a round of applause. Dialogue and debate is not just a decades-long tradition here at University High School. It is the lifeblood of our society. It is the main ingredient of a free democracy. It is the most important aspect of life in a free and a thriving democracy. The ability to engage in thoughtful dialogue and debate, the ability to acknowledge that there's more than just one side to any number of contentious issues in society, the ability to thoughtfully listen, reflect, and analyze opposing arguments is not just important, but vital to the survival of American democracy. And the fact that these young leaders are going to bravely engage in this practice in a time when many folks in our society, several decades older than the young people on this stage, can't even have a simple conversation, speaks to the leadership, the courage, the bravery, the preparation, and the commitment to dialogue and debate that the UHS community has always stood for. So give yourselves a round of applause as well. And with that, we are ready for party opening statements. So as all of you know, we have 6 parties represented on stage. We have Party Renaissance. Give it up for them. Party Disco. Party Pantheon. Party Noir. Party Matrix. Party Gambit. And let us now get started. Each party leader will have 1 minute to deliver their respective parties' opening statements. Time will be kept, and I believe you will let me know when they're at the 10-second or 15-second 10-second mark, okay. Up first to deliver its party opening statement, let's welcome the party leader from Party Renaissance.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Miller, and I am Party Renaissance's party chair. Here at Party Renaissance, we're determined to address the pressing issues of our country today. Similar to the Renaissance, we strive to create a new age of enlightenment thinking through implementing distinctive policies that will help bring power back to the people. Through proposing comprehensive, constitutional, and democratic reform, we will help to lay the foundations for a nation built upon the eager participation of its people. At Party Renaissance, we stand with a disadvantage, and we strongly believe that a world in which all people have mutual respect and all countries is a world that is beneficial to everyone. We firmly believe that our current political system actively prevents progress, and it is silencing the voices of those who so desperately need to be heard. Party Renaissance commits to ensuring that everyone in our country has a voice in their government and a more direct say in their own lives. It is your voice, and we want to make sure that you have the power to use it. Thank you.
Up next, we have Party Disco.
Good morning. My name is Sydney Kim, and I am the presidential candidate for Party Disco. We are the party of equitable social and economic policies. We emphasize long-term solutions for long-standing problems. We will increase access to college without drowning the taxpayers. We will progress the search for alternative energy sources while maintaining reasonable prices for gas. Party Disco will back our progressive social programs with sustainable economic policies, rooted in the creation of new jobs, controlling price levels, and managing the national debt. Cutting income taxes for the lowest tax bracket and increasing taxes on the ultra-rich, we maintain a surplus of $60 billion. Join us, Party Disco, as we use pragmatic policies to propel this country into the future. Join us, Party Disco, as we bring you into the spotlight. Join us as we make the world sparkle. Thank you.
Yes, let us now welcome the party leader from Party Pantheon.
Hi, we're Party Pantheon. Did you know you have rights? The Constitution says you do, and so do we. Party Pantheon was built upon a foundation of respect for the origins of democracy, from the altars of Athens to the roads of the Roman Republic. Party Pantheon believes that a democratic government must be elected by the people, for the people. Our party is upheld by 4 pillars: expanding equitable opportunities, protecting democracy, fighting for worldwide stability, and building a better America. Here at Party Pantheon, we believe real change comes from real policy. Instead of attempting to escape the framework of our country, Party Pantheon recognizes that the world doesn't work that way. Other nations, states, cities, and citizens are woven into the fabric of our platform, and more importantly, our country. Party Pantheon emerges as a leader on this stage. We initiate solutions that will leave powerful impressions on the future of America. My name is Zero Lynn, and I am the party chair of Party Pantheon. Thank you.
It is now time to hear from the party leader from Party Noir.
Hi everyone, my name is Abigail Hunter and I'm the party chair for Party Noir. Noir films are typically highlighted by their cynical portrayal of the world around them. They show detectives working to uncover the cold truth of a case while the odds are stacked against them. Here at Party Noir, we see things a little differently. We view the challenges that face society not as a final say in the fate of the world, but instead as something we strive to overcome together. That's why our policies are backed by logical thinking and statistical evidence, formulating a progressive future that unites us rather than dividing us. From our work at home in comprehensive criminal justice reform, to re-envisioning our healthcare system to provide coverage to those who need it most, and creating a sustainable future to expand the scope of renewable energy. To our work abroad, balancing the needs of the world with the needs of the United States, working with developing nations as partners, and valuing them as more than just the producers of our commodities, and collaborating together to form feasible solutions to conflict. Because with Party Noir, the solutions are no mystery. Thank you.
Next up, let's hear from Party Matrix.
Happy Black History Month, everybody, real quick. Here in my hand is the speech which I had planned to give, chock full of Matrix movie allusions and references, sly jokes, and other cheap puns. But for just this once, I'm going to go with my heart instead. A black man, Tyree Nichols, who loves photography and skateboarding, is beaten, thrashed, and murdered. So I stand here today out of a chance, a mistake among the larger global system and its plan to blot out the life out of this body, whether for being black, Palestinian, or Iraqi. Malcolm X used to ask, who taught you? And with current events, I keep asking myself that question too. But I've realized I know who taught them. I know who taught the murders of Tyree Nichols. I know who taught the shooter at Monterey Park. I know who taught every one of these killers who killed their own kind. It was our government's long legacy of imperialism. It was IDF soldiers teaching Derek Chauvin to kneel on black necks, lingering Cold War rhetoric that made Asian American citizens into enemies, and illegal CIA-sponsored regime changes that radicalized entire nations into extremists. The policies of Party Matrix aren't just here for a school project. They're a plea from me, from our leaders, our families, and our nations. My plea to let us breathe and to let us exist. Thank you.
Rounding out the party opening statement segment of today's debate is Party Gambit.
Good morning. My name is Alex Nundrowski, and I'm the chair of Party Gambit. In life, as in chess, forethought wins. Party Gambit encapsulates this statement by Charles Buxton through our emphasis on the long-term impacts of seemingly peripheral policies. Party Gambit recognizes each individual and their respective values. We aim to create a society that improves the lives of our people, where nobody is treated as a pawn. We're bolstering the historically and systematically underrepresented, while dissuading monopolization of our economy and society by figureheads that are no longer concerned with the struggles of their constituents. Instead of throwing money at current day issues and implementing short-term solutions, we're investing in permanent strategies that address the inefficiencies, inequalities, and corruption at the root of our society. At Party Gambit, we move for what matters. We move for you.
Wow, don't know what to say about that one. All right. Well, we're now ready to move to the heart of the foreign policy portion of today's dialogue and debate, the prepared questions segment. So parties, here's how it goes. The first party, you're going to get 45 seconds to answer the foreign policy question. And then the second party is going to get 45 seconds to respond to the first party's original answer. So the first pair of parties that will get us started is Party Renaissance. Oh, looks like I'm skipping opening statements, getting right to the prepared questions. We do get foreign policy opening statements, so before we do the prepared questions, parties do get to deliver their initial opening statements around their foreign policy platforms. So just as we did with general party opening statements, our parties will get 1 minute to deliver their platform on foreign policy. So up first is Party Renaissance.
Hi everyone, my name is Atticus Smith. I am the Foreign Policy Chair for Party Renaissance. The United States has had a choppy history with foreign affairs, especially when it comes to the excessive military involvement in overseas conflicts. The US has acted as a global police force for the better part of a century. This is why Party Renaissance wants to focus on pulling back our military presence throughout the world. We will cut our military budget down and redistribute those tax dollars to fund a more comprehensive social program and better foreign aid, including microfinance, a system of giving microloans to peoples in developed countries to bolster their economy. We also will promote more local manufacturing to combat the effects of exploitative labor found abroad. Thank you.
Party Disco.
Good morning, friends, teachers, and fellow students. My name is Leo Klump, and I am Party Disco's foreign chair. Party Disco is committed to protecting the sovereignty and independence of all nations, giving humanitarian aid to those in need, and protecting the human rights of every person in every country. To accomplish this goal, we plan to use the United Nations as our primary distributor of aid, which will help limit our military involvement in other sovereign countries. Additionally, we plan to reduce and reallocate our military spending by nearly $200 billion over the next 10 years. This will allow the United States to focus less on military matters and more on building strong relationships with our allies. In short, Party Disco is committed to protecting the human rights around the world while also reducing our global military presence. We believe that following this ideology, we can create a more peaceful and prosperous world for all. Thank you.
Party Pantheon.
Good morning. I'm Chelsea Harmon, Party Pantheon's foreign chair. Mr. O just told you the debate is a rite of passage. So too is APUSH. And in the words of Dr. Hosmer, God protects fools, drunkards, and the United States of America. It is, unfortunately, a reflection of history. As we prosper, other countries have floundered without the same blessing. Party Pantheon is adding more countries to that phrase. It doesn't have to be just the United States. That's why Party Pantheon is using the UN to its fullest potential, amplifying the voices of smaller nations and asking developed allies to do more. We do not abide by one ideology, no vague blanket solutions, but instead we create solutions. Because that's what good diplomacy is. Party Pantheon is going to broaden the list so other countries can be safe, protect their citizens, and prosper alongside us. Thank you.
And Party Noir.
Good morning. I'm Paul Jennis, and I'm Party Noir's Vice President. At Party Noir, we recognize that for too long, the U.S. has used its role as a global leader as an excuse to unnecessarily intervene in global affairs and exploit developing nations. Therefore, we hope to shift the nation's approach from military and political intervention to promoting global progress and diplomacy. We will end the U.S.'s historically flawed methods of intervention, but will not take a completely non-interventionist position, as we feel that powerful nations such as the United States have an obligation toward working for the stability, prosperity, and equality of the planet. You'll find it in our policies. We will balance the needs of the U.S. with the world when addressing foreign affairs. We will orient ourselves diplomatically rather than militaristically when addressing the world's crises. We're committed to reducing our global military presence, cutting the military budget by hundreds of billions. Under Party Noir, the United States will work with the world toward a solution rather than being the solution. Thank you.
Party Matrix.
Good morning, everyone. I need to preface this by saying that I managed to lose my voice the day of the debate, so bear with me, please. I'm not here to regurgitate what every other party has so far. Instead, I'm here to tell you about our history. The U.S. has an undeniable past of rampant and relentless abuse in nations like Iran, the Congo, Colombia, and beyond. We have used our power to rip countries to shreds and trample over their needs, cultures, and politics. This ends with Party Matrix. The days of exploitation are over. Instead, a new dawn has come, and with that dawn brings the power back to the people. Through our international sovereign rights charters and our international workers' rights charters, we put the power back into the hands of the people we have stripped it from. We plan to invest in the nations of which we have burnt to a crisp, not for our own desires, but for the sake of the people. We plan to help rebuild the world of which we have crippled. Thus, I implore you, join Party Matrix and help us create a world fair and equitable for all. Thank you.
And rounding out foreign policy opening statements, Party Gambit.
At Party Gambit, we take the chess motto, Gen Una Sumus, we are one people, to heart. With the soon-to-be irreversible effects of climate change, spread of infectious disease, and threat of military conflict abroad, the time of tumult has brought us to a political precipice. This is time for careful action that takes into account the effects of the United States' role on the world stage, both past and present. Our foreign policy focuses on changing the game, approaching things with a delicate balance and moving with precision. At Party Gambit, our non-interventionalist policies extend to the long game, emphasizing a sustainable future built on the foundation of diplomacy. We are prepared to move for you, handling complex issues with the dedication and focus of a chess game. Thank you.
It is now that we move into prepared questions, same directions as I've given previously. First party gets 45 seconds to respond to the initial question. Second party called on gets 45 seconds to respond. The first pair of parties that are up for question number 1, Party Renaissance, you will answer the initial question. Party Matrix, you will receive 45 seconds to respond. Each party, of course, does have 45 seconds. So, Party Renaissance. In recent years, global partnerships to combat climate change have been a pressing issue. The major contributors to climate change are largely more developed countries, while those most affected by climate change are living in developing nations, and can't afford the consequences of severe weather. If elected, what will your party do to support these struggling nations as they combat the effects of climate change?
Hello? This one? Maybe? Right? Anyways, Party Renaissance believes that real action for the climate crisis begins at home, especially considering the U.S.'s large responsibility in the climate crisis. Our domestic policies such as agricultural reform, stricter regulations for corporations and their use of single-use plastics, and our greenhouse gas emission tax will tackle this issue at home. Not domestically. On the other hand, our microfinance policies will help fund sustainable development in countries most affected by the climate crisis and need help with climate equity. We also will propose a bill to the UN that will have guidelines for 147 countries to be carbon neutral by 2050. Thank you.
Party Matrix with the response.
Oh, it's on.
Now, Party Renaissance is talking a lot of talk here. At the end, you guys mentioned your microfinancing plan, which I must say is going to cripple nations. Through this microfinance plan, Party Renaissance plans to distribute $25,000 loans to about, 800 people, wasting about $20 million. But the worst part about this is that that loan is at a 15% interest rate. That makes student loans look easy. Party Renaissance is maybe achieving climate neutral energy, but at the cost of the nation's economies. They're going to throw nations into crippling debt. Thank you.
The second question is for Party Disco for the initial response, for the initial answer, and then Party Noir will be responding. The United States military, the largest in the world, operates in nearly 150 nations around the world, with more stationed at sea. Advocates argue that American military presence and security forces around the world project stability and secure American interests both here and abroad, while critics see the U.S. international military presence as a form of overreach and aggression. What is your party's approach to global military involvement? Party Disco.
All right. So, here at Party Disco, we plan to reduce the military budget to $550 billion by 2033. This will free up over $200 billion to improve the lives of Americans. We will work with our allies to share defense burdens while supporting their efforts to improve their defense. Our new strategy will focus on overmatch tactics and efforts to improve global commons and downscale the American Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. While getting rid of outdated equipment, the proposed reductions will not affect any soldier's active or retired's benefits or pay. Party Disco plans for the United States to reduce our global presence while maintaining our safety and protecting countries' democracies, foreign and domestic. Thank you.
And that's a time. Thank you. Party Noir with a response.
I'm sure many of you are familiar with the historically extensive militaristic approach to global affairs of the United States. At Party Noir, we acknowledge the entrenchment of this in the United States' habit to approaching international affairs, and thus we acknowledge it cannot be changed overnight. However, unlike Party Disco, we are committed to making this change quickly and appropriately. We will be doing this by divesting from our military investments in foreign countries and restructuring our commitment to international militaristic organizations such as NATO, shifting the burden off of America and encouraging other member states to contribute more. This is in our pursuit of diplomacy, not for the benefit of the United States, but for the benefit of the world at large, protecting American interests and promoting a safe and equitable world. Thank you very much.
Question number 3, Party Pantheon, you're up with the initial response, and Party Disco, you will be responding. As the Russian invasion of Ukraine nears its 1-year anniversary, Russia has, I'll say tentatively, captured and is struggling to maintain large portions of the country, largely in the east, in the Donetsk and the Luhansk region. And though they have annexed this territory, and the territory continues to be contended by both countries, Ukraine refuses to accept conceding any land or portions of their nation to Russia. Is your party willing to recognize Russian claims to those lands in order to make a peace deal? Party Pantheon.
Thank you for that question. Party Pantheon will absolutely not recognize Russian claims to Ukrainian land. The Russia-Ukraine war is not the first time the international community has seen Russia's failure to respond to international pressure. They don't care about the world has to say. Analysts across the globe have warned that Russia's unfaltering assault on Ukraine will not cease until Russia's resources have been exhausted. Party Pantheon recognizes this, and therefore we will be continuing to provide logistical support and humanitarian aid to Ukraine to help them outlast the Russian invasion. When the time comes, Party Pantheon will facilitate peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine on the condition that Russia surrender its claims to Ukrainian land. Thank you.
Party Pantheon, how will you ensure that this doesn't turn into a proxy war like that of Vietnam? It started out scarily similar, and the similarities are striking. What Party Disco proposes is to impose a spending limit of $500 billion a year. So far to date, this war's been going on for nearly a year. The anniversary is in the next couple of weeks. We've only spent around $30 billion, so a $500 billion limit will not cause any problems. We will continue our public support of the Ukrainian people and the condemnation of Russia. We will not commit any troops, however, to Ukraine unless Russia breaches the NATO border, in which case we are prepared to defend our allies.
Our next question is for Party Matrix to respond, with Party Gambit getting an opportunity to respond. The use of drones and robots in conflict abroad has raised grave questions about the ethics of modern warfare. Will your party continue to support AI or artificial intelligence weapons, or amend current policies and practices? This is for Party Matrix. Party Gambit, you're on deck to respond.
Okay, look, both Party Gambit and Party Matrix are against drone warfare here. The difference is, though, that my background as an Iraqi gives me the deep understanding of the actual destruction it has wrought on my nation and on my mother's nation. That's why we're introducing the International Sovereign Rights Charter. This is a legally binding code which can be used to sue U.S. leaders for their illegal operations abroad, including things like regime changes, covert operation, and other military interventions. This falls under the blanket of drone warfare. So for somebody like George Bush, who propagated an entire war off the lie that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, he could be tried in U.S. courts so that we can actually give justice to the Iraqi people. Thank you.
Zach at Party Matrix said, we also stand strongly against the use of drones and automated technology in warfare. The difference between us and Matrix is we're taking concrete plans to shift away from the development of weapons systems. We're cutting our military budget to $532 billion per year, as well as shifting 18.6% to research and development, not towards weaponry systems, but to science and technology that can help our citizens at home. Thank you.
The next question, the initial response is for Party Noir, so you're up first. And responding to their response will be Party Pantheon. The recent withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan and its subsequent recapture by the Taliban was a crushing blow to American relations with the Islamic world. How does your party plan to repair the U.S. image and to normalize diplomacy in the Middle East?
Specifically about Afghanistan, the Biden administration sets aside $6 billion for Afghan resettlement, which Party Noir will be honoring in our defense budget. Historically, experts have alluded to the United States' unconditional support of Israel as a barrier, preventing normalization with the rest of the Arab world, and we believe that we will help amend this with our drastically reduced support for Israel, considering the humanitarian violations that they commit. We will also ensure, through our OPEC policy, that diplomacy is not tied to oil purchases. However, Party Noir will not be overlooking the violations of international expectations for human rights, primarily committed by Saudi Arabia with the proliferation of the crisis in Yemen and Iran's treatment of their own people. At Party Noir, we emphasize finding a cultural and ideological common ground that can build strong connections and relations for the future. Thank you.
Like Party Noir, Party Pantheon recognizes that the capture of Afghanistan has caused significant strain on surrounding nations, and we will be taking the refugee burden off of Pakistan and India by allowing more Afghan refugees to enter our country. But what Party Noir gets wrong is that just fixing relations with Israel is not the answer. Just stopping oil exports is not the answer. We require individualized solutions to each specific region, and Party Pantheon offers individualized solutions. Thank you.
And the next question is for Party Gambit. Initial response and responding to Party Gambit will be Party Renaissance. There are approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States today, with millions more attempting to enter the country each year. Reform of the immigration system here in the United States is not a new topic. In fact, it's a very old topic that stretches back decades and decades and decades and decades. Generations of leaders have struggled to reform the system. What is your party's plan to resolve a system that has been stalled in its reform efforts by fears of national security, demographic change? What is your plan to reform the immigration system while addressing the concerns of critics?
Gambit recognizes that our current immigration system does not meet the needs of the people that it is meant to serve. For this reason, we are diverting funds from ICE, working to provide more social services and limit ICE detention centers. We're also working to ensure fair access to a trial with legal counsel, as well as we're funding several projects to limit the backlog on immigration cases. Party Renaissance will come up here and propose to you a fiscally lofty immigration policy. And frankly, it's unrealistic. While we agree with the ideals behind their immigration policy, functionally it could never be implemented in our current society, and we need to turn to reform that can take action now. Thank you.
While Party Gambit aims to help people get fairer access to trials and put a little bit more resources into helping people get trials to get citizenship status, we want to really attack the root of the problem of immigration. Security concerns are misplaced onto asylum seekers who are coming to escape the things in their country that are pushing them here, and the U.S. has long neglected its fundamental role in creating those conditions. We want to focus on stopping the effects that gangs have in the Central American countries, which we actually created. So we want to help Central American countries strengthen their welfare systems and decriminalize asylum seekers who are just coming here to seek a better life. Thank you.
And the next portion of today's dialogue and debate, we are headed into the inter-party questions segment of the program. So here are the rules. So the party I call on will get to ask a question of any of the other parties on stage. The party that is called on to answer the question will get a minute to answer. The questioning party will get 45 seconds to respond. So our first party is Party Renaissance. They will get to choose to ask a question of any of the other parties on stage. The party that they call on to answer their question is going to get a minute to answer, and then Party Renaissance will get 45 seconds to respond to that answer. Are we all good? Okay, Party Renaissance, you're up first.
Now, this is a question from Party Pantheon. They state in their policy, I quote, "The best way to remedy rogue actors like Iran, Russia, and North Korea is to encourage political optimism," unquote. Now, as many people in the audience may also be wondering, how will political activism solve humanitarian crises and world-threatening issues?
Fails to realize is that professional foreign policy analysts do not define optimism as activism or good vibes. Political optimism means a country that is stable, that invests in long-term diplomatic efforts. Hannah Arendt writes in The Origins of Totalitarianism that authoritarianism is bred from pessimistic nations. Nations who are unstable, who lash out with violence for short-term gains. Think of Putin's war in Ukraine. Party Pantheon seeks to encourage optimism, aka stability, in every single one of its platforms, which is more than what Party Renaissance can say for its foreign platform. Thank you.
Now, what Party Pantheon fails to understand is that although it sounds nice and easy to simply switch all countries that are struggling, that are unstable, into a more decisive and stable country. However, this is not the case. It is not as simple as swapping to an optimistic outlook, to swapping to a
stable country is not the case, is not a night and day switch. You have to work for it, and they fail to talk about any way they plan to make these countries stable in the future. Thank you.
Okay, it is now Party Disco.
This is a question for Party Matrix. Party Matrix, despite changing your budget 2 days after the platform was due, and a resultant change in over $1 trillion, your budget still seems to exist in some alternate realities. Cutting your defense spending by over $350 billion, down to only 1.5% of our GDP. What will you do about the ramifications this will have on the United States and military alliances like NATO?
Boy, am I glad you asked. Allow me to read off the list of war crimes committed by NATO. Bombings in Libya, Afghanistan, Bosnia and Herzegovina, bombing refugees near Kosovo, near Albania, and a simply endless list. Stop laughing at me. A seemingly endless list of war crimes. We cannot simply stand and continue abuse by developed powers as we see in NATO today. So tell me, Party Disco, do you condone that in your own NATO budget?
What Party Matrix fails to understand is in the 2014 NATO summit, the most basic provision is that each member country is expected to spend 2% of their GDP on defense spending. They violate the promise that NATO was built upon, ultimately entrenching this key military alliance in spending cuts and betrayal. As Russia quickly approaches NATO borders, moves like this cannot be afforded. Hindering our ability to work with our allies, Party Matrix's military budget is negligent and reckless. In an attempt to balance their books and achieve a surplus, Party Matrix has endangered countless lives and democracies. An error in arithmetic or an error in basic understanding, either way, this is not a party that should be making any decisions for our country's future. Thank you.
Party Pantheon, the stage is yours.
This question is for Party Noir. Your NATO policy says, and I quote, to enforce the member state contribution minimum of 2%, Party Noir will be mandating a minimal annual increase of 0.1% of the nation's GDP in military spending for members who do not meet the current minimum. Nations who fail again to meet these requirements of this mandate will be removed from NATO. How do you expect these countries, like Albania and North Macedonia, who can barely keep their own economies afloat, to reach that 2% GDP and be kicked out? How are you going to kick out key geopolitical allies like this?
Party Pantheon, thank you for your question. I was going to ask you about your NATO policy, but frankly, I thought it demonstrated a lack of fundamental understanding for how NATO worked, so I decided against it. Your claim that our policy will cripple these nations is simply untrue. The United States spends a ridiculous amount of our budget on NATO through defense spending to make up for these countries at this moment. We are not placing a heavy burden on these countries. We are simply asking them to be accountable for the actions that they promised in 2006 and 2014 at NATO summits. These are not insane demands that we are asking. We are just requesting that they simply fulfill the promises that they made. Thank you.
What Party Noir fails to realize is that this is symbolically, we are turning our backs on our most important allies. Albania, with its close proximity to Russia, will feel slighted, will feel offended that we're resulting to kicking them out of this alliance, which they have been a part of for decades. What Party Noir is doing is turning their backs on key allies and letting them fall closer to authoritarianism and Russian and Chinese coercion. It doesn't matter what the economics are. Symbolically, this is suicide.
Party Noir.
This question is for Party Matrix. According to Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations Human Rights Council, Israel has created a state of apartheid in its occupied territories. You specifically mentioned supporting decisions by the UN and International Court of Justice in their ruling on Israel's occupation. However, you take no direct action that majorly affects the state of Israel. How will you end the oppression of Palestinian people and ensure a future for Palestinian culture?
I'd first like to make a clarification. We do have direct action on the state of Israel. That includes an official policy of deoccupation. So that includes things like allowing the UN to then condemn the occupation so that we can move forward away from, for example, the settlements in Palestine. And while we don't have a specific solution to the larger program due to certain compromises made within Party Matrix, the difference between your policy and ours is that we're not choosing to offer a solution which ignores the reality of the situation on the ground. I take a glance at your policy and it reads, the creation, one of the terms for creating this two-state solution is that the creation of a non-militarized, distinct Palestinian state with a police force to be used to maintain only internal security. Does this not create a weak, dependent Palestinian state with no way to assert itself in the face of Israel's crimes? Thank you.
Party Matrix. Our policy on Israel-Palestine that proposes a solution is extremely realistic. Although we admit it is not ideal, it is a basic fact that both sides will have to concede some factors that they believe key to their existence. But our outline for the parameters for a two-state solution are not necessarily concrete. We propose a solution that we believe may work, but we do not understand all of the complexities of the Israel-Palestine issue, and thus, all of the terms are up to negotiation by both parties. All we support is a solution, whatever that may be. Thank you.
Okay, Party Matrix, the floor is yours.
So, to sort of continue the discussion, Party Noir, the key point there is that you do not understand the complexities of the issue. For example, UN Resolution 194, which promises the right of return to all Palestinian people displaced, including their descendants, is not able to be guaranteed by the peace solution that you offer. Every single two-state solution that has ever been offered has failed because of UN Resolution 194. In order to secure the key facet of this peace agreement, you have to promise that Palestinians can return. And Israel, time after time, has denied that reality. So how exactly are you going to respond to that fact? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Palestinian right of return through UN Resolution 194 and solidified in UN Resolution 242 is something that has been agreed upon numerous times by Israel in the past. The 1993 Oslo Accords, the Arab Peace Initiative, as well as the Clinton parameters are examples of times Israel has agreed to Palestinian right of return. Our solution, although I admit it is not perfect, it is better than no solution at all, which is what your party currently proposes. Thank you.
The simple reality is that that is untrue. It has not been agreed upon. Time after time, Israel's agreement to UN Resolution 194 has been one of taking perhaps 80,000 Palestinians back into the state. The simple truth is that 700,000 people were displaced by the Nakba, including my grandma and my great-grandmother. So for you to come up here and suggest that this peace solution offers anything but one more American failure on foreign policy and misunderstandings, it simply is untrue. Thank you.
Okay, Party Gambit, it's your time.
That was spicy. This question goes out to Party Renaissance. With your policy on microfinancing to help other nations in need, you plan to create small loans with a 14.8% interest rate. Would you mind elaborating on how these microloans will help the nations that you're supposedly helping? Thank you.
Thank you for asking this question. I've really wanted to clarify on this. So, yes, the initial interest rates of microloans are high. 14.5, not 8, is a high upfront cost, I admit. However, this has been in place for over a decade. It has been studied and in places that we choose to invest in, like Nepal, Bangladesh, and the Laos People's Democratic Republic. It works, and it has been working. However, we are willing to compromise. If in the first stages of our implementation, we notice in the data that it's not successful, it's not as efficient as it could be, we are willing to change it, to lower the rates, to introduce new policies that can make it better, because we're flexible. Thank you.
Party Renaissance fails to understand the long-term effects of microfinancing. First of all, not in your platform that you're going to adjust the interest rates. This is something they've simply made up on the spot after days of pushback on their microloan policy. Furthermore, research has shown that in the long term, this microfinancing can actually create further cycles of poverty, trapping these people under an intense amount of debt. Furthermore, Party Renaissance does not truly support the mobility of these people. The real way to wage mobility is through stable jobs that pay living wages. Party Renaissance's dawn of a new democracy seems more like a new dawn of US economic imperialism.
And with that, we are going to return to our second portion of prepared questions in the category of foreign policy. Just like in the first segment of the prepared questions, the first party that I call on is going to get 45 seconds to answer. And the second party is going to get 45 seconds to respond to that initial answer. And the first pair of parties that we're going to call on here is Party Noir with the first response. And then Party Disco, you will have an opportunity to respond. As China and Taiwan are becoming increasingly more belligerent towards one another, raising fears of war, it puts the United States in a bit of a conundrum. The United States, across several decades and across the 20th century and several administrations, has been guided by the One China policy as well as the Taiwan Relations Act that doesn't recognize Taiwanese independence and acknowledges Chinese control of Taiwan. But in the event of a conflict or a war, how would your party respond, especially considering that Taiwan is one of the world's predominant producers of semiconductors and microchips, necessary for the technology that thrives in the Western world? Would you support one side or another in the event of a war, or would you remain neutral?
Party Disco's policy includes a dangerous provocation of Chinese response. Although the One China policy has governed the United States' approach to this issue in the past, Party Noir does not believe that China has the unalienable claim to Taiwan. However, we do not officially recognize Taiwan as an independent nation at risk of upsetting China and causing a global crisis. We will support Taiwan economically through our advocacy of their inclusion in the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will give them open market access to North American markets. We hope that this will give them economic sovereignty and give them the potential to defend themselves, because in the event of a war and aggression by Beijing, Party Noir will support Taiwan completely. Thank you.
With Xi Jinping's promise to invade Taiwan by the end of his term, our policies will have bolstered Taiwanese defenses so they can propel an attack. China is gaining an immediate foothold on the island with Party Noir's policy. What they failed to mention was they are cutting a current aid package by Biden of $4.5 billion. This means that when the invasion comes, Taiwan will fall. Our policies will make sure that doesn't happen. Party Disco's preparations for this inevitable war will minimize loss of life. Of this drawn-out conflict. Party Disco realizes that a war with Taiwan is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We will be prepared, Party Noir will not. Thank you.
Second question, Party Gambit. Initial response, Party Pantheon, you will have an opportunity to respond. Since its birth as a nation, Israel has enjoyed the unquestioned support of the United States as America's most important ally in the Middle East. Israel has been an important partner for American objectives in the region, but in recent years, Israel has come under increased scrutiny for the living conditions of the Palestinian people under their control and administration. Despite this, the United States has continued to give both military and economic support to Israel. How does your party intend to balance this relationship?
At Party Gambit, we condemn the actions by the State of Israel against the nation of Palestine. We will work to end all military funding to Israel while providing increased humanitarian aid to Palestine. Furthermore, we recognize the right of both of these groups to live and exist on this land, the Palestinian right of return, as well as the desire and need for a Jewish homeland. However, Party Pantheon's platform states that they want Israel to either annex their occupied territories or exit. These occupied territories have been declared illegal under international law. They want to extend Israel as a one-state solution where the Palestinians live under Israeli control, basically eliminating any sense of Palestinian national identity.
I would first and foremost like to make very clear that Party Pantheon does not support a one-state solution, and that Party Gambit has misinterpreted what we mean by annexation. Again, in official foreign policy terms, annexation would simply mean extending the rights to people living in Palestine and be codified and be able to be tried under a code of law. Members of the Palestinian National Authority currently do not enjoy rights. Well, furthermore, the second prong of our Israel-Palestine policy is that Israel could leave its occupied territories. And we will use economic pressure to either do one or both of these things, neither of which support a one-state solution, both of which want to support a solution and giving lives back to Palestinian people. Thank you.
Next up will be Party Matrix with the initial response, and then Party Renaissance. You will have an opportunity to respond to Party Matrix answer. So the UN, otherwise known as the United Nations, is comprised of 193 member states. The United States contributions are considerably higher than most of the other countries, funding 22% of the United Nations overall budget. Should the United States government continue to put more money towards the UN or pull back and ask other members to contribute more, and for what reason?
Now, we don't plan to increase the funding we allot to the UN, but we plan to reevaluate the funding we already do allot. Currently, there are many sectors of the UN that have proven inefficient. The UN peacekeeping forces are a fine example of that. We are not going to put more money into the peacekeeping forces specifically, but we are going to extend our military capabilities to help build them up as a force so that they can grow to be efficient. Furthermore, we will be increasing the funding we allot to the Green Climate Fund of the UNFCCC. This will allow countries to help build themselves up environmentally. Now, Party Renaissance currently plans to extend their microfinance plan, which is just straight bad, into the UN. It seems like the only thing that Party Renaissance is stepping into is a pool of debt for the globe. Thank you.
Now, what Party Matrix fails to understand and mention in their policy is what we believe at Party Renaissance is a vital part of the United Nations, which is the UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, which the US dropped out of due to its relations with Israel-Palestine, and we plan to rejoin. This includes repaying our debts and increasing funding to this, counteracting China's increased funding to counteract their authority and dominion over this branch. We will also be introducing a new climate change bill that we mentioned earlier to the UN, which introduces a goal of 147 carbon neutral nations by 2050. Thank you.
Our next question, the initial response will be for Party Pantheon, with Party Gambit having an opportunity to respond. Gas prices, gas prices, gas prices. American dependence on foreign oil has long been a contentious issue for the American consumer for several decades. And American dependence on foreign oil and natural gas, especially from OPEC countries, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and other Middle Eastern nations, has been a primary catalyst for unrest in that region of the world, as well as a questionable point of concern for Americans concerned with oil profits supporting questionable regimes, such as in the case of Saudi Arabia. How does your party seek to lessen these tensions in the Middle East in regards to oil consumption and fossil fuel trade agreements?
Since its creation in 1960, OPEC has consistently proven to be volatile and is now expanding its coalition into problematic states like Russia. However, as the world shifts away from depending on fossil fuels, OPEC shifts away from a position of power. Party Pantheon will be accelerating this change by completely transitioning into clean energy within the next 20 years. To ease this transition, Party Pantheon will be encouraging American importers to lean away from OPEC oil by shifting subsidies that currently exist for OPEC onto NATO oil. We already get 60% of our oil just from Canada alone, and we only get 14% of our oil from Saudi Arabia. Not only will this be a blessing to our environment, but it will also bring relief to tensions existing in the Middle East. Most of our conflicts in the Middle East are exacerbated by America's addiction to oil.
And that's time.
We're Party Gambit, by the way. We didn't get introduced. Anyways, with OPEC having 80% of petroleum reserves in the world and a 16% control of the world's petroleum trade, Party Gambit understands that it is critical for our own energy independence. We will be implementing this through our switch, unlike Pantheon, from 20 years to 15 years when it comes to renewable energy sources. We will also be investing in petroleum reserves towards countries such as Mexico, Canada, and other Latin American countries, not only boosting the economies of these countries, but also decreasing our dependence on OPEC. Thank you.
The ongoing civil war in Syria, the current invasion of Ukraine on the part of the Russian Federation, the level of poverty, illiteracy, and economic failure in Afghanistan are just some examples of the multiple humanitarian crises that are ongoing around the world, threatening the progress of the last 30 years in regards to refugees, hunger, literacy, food security, access to medical care. What is your party's approach to at least one of these crises?
It is our duty to help countries in need. As one of the most powerful and developed countries, it is imperative that we help with the humanitarian crisis around the world. Take, for instance, Somalia. Party Disco will take immediate action to help provide crucial aid. We will provide essential resources like food, water, and housing materials to help alleviate suffering. We will provide essential distribution through food of this aid through international organizations like the Red Cross and the United Nations, or with the assistance of friendly government entities. Our military personnel already on the ground will assist in ensuring that aid reaches those who are most in need. Together, we will work to fight inequality and make a difference in the lives of those affected by the humanitarian crisis. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You know, we have a variety of plans to address different humanitarian crises, and I could talk about any one of them that we share with many of the parties up here. But one that I think that Party Disco will fail to actually address is the crisis in Yemen. Right now, the support for Saudi Arabia gives the Saudi Arabian country the pretext to continue a campaign that kills civilians and causes numerous humanitarian abuses in Yemen as of right now. And because you continue to support NATO, for example, you don't actually hold anyone accountable for the countless war crimes that NATO has committed. We can talk about Libya, we can talk about Afghanistan or Kosovo, the countless deaths that have come from that. Instead of lauding us instead of coming at us with the fact that we're actually helping people out by pulling back from NATO, by actually providing support for organizations that will emphasize humanitarian rights, you ignore the fact that your campaign will continue to kill civilians across the world. Thank you.
And our next question is for Party Renaissance for the initial answer, and then Party Noir, you'll have an opportunity to respond. So America has had a long and complex history, questionable relationship with Iran. Whether it's the controversial support of the Shah, subsequently overthrown in 1979, the taking of American hostages in Tehran in 1979, and the confrontational relationship with the Ayatollah Khomeini, the contentious relations between the two countries continue to this day. Iran has long been the subject of scrutiny, additionally for its development of nuclear programs, its funding of wars in the region. More recently, the country has been rocked by widespread protests and unrest because the government seems to be at a major turning point. With these recent developments, will your party change the current administration's relationship with Iran?
I want to start this off by saying this question was not supposed to be asked to us. under the prior debate format, but we are still happy to discuss it either way. So, Party Renaissance supports the feminist movement within Iran and will plan to support them with financial aid or aid with supplies, whatever they need. However, we do not want to incite violence, meaning we will not give them militaristic aid of any kind and repeat what has happened in the past with our relations with Iran. Finally, Party Renaissance does not support Iran and its tirade against women, obviously, and we firmly stand against it, which means we will be continuing sanctions against Iran. Thank you.
Party Noir recognizes the atomic stockpile that Iran is building up. It recognizes the human rights abuses that Iran is committing against its own citizens, against its own women. And we're going to stop it. We're going to work with the European Union to raise sanctions against Iran. We're going to use our global political influence to raise sanctions until they do stop. But we're also going to give them an incentive. If they stop producing nuclear weapons, if they stop violating the rights of their own citizens, we're going to relieve our sanctions. That's a diplomatic solution that helps prevent the human rights abuses, that helps the Iran citizens and Iran's women. Thank you.
We will now return to the inter-party question segment of the program. Similar to the first segment of inter-party questions, the party I call on will choose the party it wishes to ask a question to. The party that is selected will have an opportunity to, will have a minute to respond, and the questioning party gets 45 seconds for the rebuttal. So Party Pantheon, you get to select the party of your choice to answer your question. They will get a minute to answer, and you will get 45 seconds to rebut. Party Pantheon.
How's everybody doing? All right, Party Noir. Your plan to alleviate tensions in China and Taiwan is predicated entirely on bolstering economic ties between the two nations. However, Xi Jinping has consistently stated that economics are not a factor in his plan to invade Taiwan. How have you ignored this, and how could your plan possibly alleviate any sort of tensions?
Party Pantheon, thank you for your question. Our plan will possibly alleviate tensions between China and Taiwan, because if you look at the history of the relationship between the two entities, economics has been the basis for diplomatic ties. Furthermore, your and Disco's plan endangers the Taiwanese people by provoking China's reaction. When Russia built up their military on the Ukrainian border, did the world accept that as a training exercise? No, it was a clear indication of an invasion. China, although it may be irrational, will apply the same argument to your application of defense in Taiwan. It is dangerous, it is reckless, and it avoids the larger problem. The conflict between China and Taiwan does not have to be inevitable, but you are making it so. Thank you.
First, I want to make it very clear that Taiwan is China's 5th biggest trading partner and is the 8th biggest economy in Asia. It is the world's supplier of microchips. The economic ties couldn't be any closer. Yet Xi Jinping has repeatedly stated and made his point that he will invade. Also, Party Noir claiming that Taiwan will invade China is ludicrous, because Taiwan wants to maintain its autonomy. Taiwan wants to maintain its independence, and all we are doing is deterring an imperialist nation like China from infringing on the economic prosperity of Taiwan. Thank you.
Okay, Party Renaissance, the floor is yours.
We are directing this question towards Party Disco. Party Disco plans to remove all non-humanitarian funding from the Israel-Palestine conflict on both sides. Now, this simply fails to come up with a real solution to end the conflict. So I may ask, what is your solution?
As we all know, the Israel-Palestine conflict is extremely complicated with many nuances that none of our parties can even begin to understand. What we're gonna do is start the conversation up again. We've tried this before, and it has failed. What we're gonna do is give them an ultimatum with the United Nations. We will advocate for UN involvement and intervention if they cannot come to an agreement by 2033. This will give them time to figure it out, and if not, we will end the conflict. We're gonna put it in their courts. They will have a chance to come up with a solution that best fits them, that neither the United States or any other country has direct input on. Thank you.
By DISCO removing help from both sides of the conflict, you give Israel complete power to continue to exploit Palestinians, who are severely the underdogs in this situation, as we all know. Now, they talk about giving a ultimatum to Palestine and Israel, right? To have them come to their own solution. And while that may sound like a good idea on paper, they have had this conflict for almost a century now. This has gone not just in the past 10 years, 20 years, but I mean, dating back to the origins of their religions is based around this, which is why we at Party Renaissance want to focus on providing real solutions. We will focus on a two-state solution with Jerusalem as a city-state, similar to that of the Vatican City, where we demand that Israel ends violence in Gaza, ends its confusing relationship with Lebanon, and stops the creation of settlements in the West Bank. Thank you.
Okay, Party Noir, you're up.
Party Pantheon, good to see you again. Your current policy on the Russia-Ukraine conflict advocates for a reduction of arms sales and increased logistical sales. However, the president of Ukraine has repeatedly asked specifically for non-autonomous arms and military aid. Furthermore, American arms donations through the Lend-Lease program have been largely responsible for momentum gained by Ukraine in their efforts against the Russian invasion. How can you justify making Ukraine vulnerable to Russian encroachment by ignoring their explicitly stated needs?
Reducing our direct military aid to Ukraine is not the same as completely pulling out all of our aid. Furthermore, the most important aid that Ukraine needs is logistical aid. They need to get people places. They need to repair bridges. They need to be able to fight back with infrastructure, because just guns won't do that. Furthermore, Party Noir's policy on Ukrainian aid makes Ukraine pay back 7% of what we own them in combat aid. In the Lend-Lease Act, that was given for free. That was just given on the condition that Ukraine use it to fight against Russia. And yet, Party Noir is engaging in debt slavery and making sure that Ukraine pay back, this war-torn country, pay back loans that it absolutely will not be able to do. Thank you. Come on.
Party Pantheon, does your infrastructure bill simply propose for the Ukrainians to build more buildings for Russian missiles to destroy? I'm confused. You are not pulling out all of your aid, I do admit that, and I never argued that. I'm just saying you are not giving Ukraine the aid they have explicitly asked for time and time again, and is responsible for Ukraine's victories against Russia. Our Lend-Lease program is actually based upon the strategy that was taken following World War II. Although the USSR was promised free aid by the United States, Russia ended up paying back about 7% of the military aid, which is around 100 billion. And so our Lend-Lease program is based in reality. We understand that Ukraine is Europe's poorest nation, and that is why, under our current
That's
policy,
the time.
Thank you.
We will now move to Party Gambit.
Is the mic on? No mic? I can
check on. Is there a green light?
Yes. I can project.
Okay, this question is for Party Disco. You are currently the only party on the stage who does not propose some level of reform to the United Nations or change in U.S. involvement. You simply state that you plan to increase funding without proposing any real structural change. With the increasing tensions between Russia, China, and the U.S., especially as 3 of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council with veto power, why have you taken this course of action?
Oh, it's on.
Party Disco believes that with increased funding, NATO can do more good than it already does. We believe in the importance of international cooperation by promoting peace and stability. To this end, we will increase our involvement in NATO. By reallocating funds previously spent on the war in Afghanistan, we will increase funding for NATO to support their efforts for providing humanitarian aid to other countries in need and bolstering our military defenses because of conflicts with Russia through the war in Ukraine. By utilizing NATO as our primary distributors of military force and aid, we can limit our actual military involvement in sovereign states, promoting a peaceful and sustainable solutions. Thank you.
You seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding of the question, like you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how the UN works. The question is on the UN, not NATO. We aren't asking you about NATO. But however, I'm now going to tell you about our UN policy. Basically, we want a greater diversity on the Security Council. We're proposing the addition of new member states to represent a global, diverse perspective. We want an additional permanent member from South America, as well as from Africa. We're to make concrete strides to reform the UN as a governing body. Obviously, Party Disco is not doing that and seems to be focusing weirdly on NATO. I don't know.
Party Matrix, the floor is yours.
Party Pantheon. You guys currently plan to support countries in need by outfitting them with autonomous defense systems. Historically, this kind of action has put countries into proxy wars. Excuse me. With the Korean War being a prime example of that. Notably in places like Taiwan and Ukraine, how do these actions not put these countries into the middle of proxy wars, increase the privatization of the military, and bolster the military-industrial complex as you are keeping the military budget at $600 billion? Or is this your Trojan horse into establishing imperialistic powers?
Let me once again reiterate, we are not engaging in imperialism, we are deterring it. And while yes, overall, we want to reduce the amount of autonomous weapons that are used, Taiwan, this little island right off the coast of China, does not have the manpower, the naval power, nor the troops to be able to defend against a Chinese invasion. Likewise, because we seek to be as non-invasive as possible, Party Pantheon will not be putting American troops on Taiwanese soil. Therefore, the next best alternative, because we are a solutions-focused platform, is to outfit the island with autonomous systems that can only mitigate and defend against an attack, not increase tensions any further.
I would argue, in fact, that instead of being a solutions-based party, you are a Raytheon-based party. The fact is, you continue to support the military-industrial complex. You continue to support the privatization of the military. Currently, again, let's emphasize this, your budget has it set at $600 billion. This is a $100 billion decrease from what we have right now. It seems that you've learned nothing from Dwight D. Eisenhower and his words on the military-industrial complex. You've learned nothing from the crimes of NATO over the past 50 years, you've learned nothing at all, and your foreign policy, again and again, promotes the interests of corporations. Thank you.
Okay, Party Disco, rounding us out here for the inter-party question segment of the program.
Party Matrix. You have proposed that you will wean off OPEC dependence for oil by taking your business to other countries. How will you prevent these countries from becoming economically independent on the United States? And why aren't you utilizing our domestic oil reserves?
Once again, another question I'm very happy to be asked by Party Disco. Currently, our OPEC plan seeks to decentralize oil from any one nation. Yes, we will be giving business to other nations for their oil business to help build up their economies, but the amount of business we will be giving them is not enough to make them dependent on us. And on the domestic oil reserves idea, there just simply is not enough. Relying on domestic oil reserves is simply unsustainable. That is entirely Party Disco's plan. They are wanting to completely cut all international oil imports and rely fully on green energy and domestic oil. That is unsustainable. And lastly, they seem to have failed to acknowledge the fact that OPEC is famous for human rights violations in the oil industry. They have done nothing to fight these. Meanwhile, we have put in a human rights violation clause to prevent our industries from committing these atrocities the way OPEC has. Thank you.
Party Matrix has failed to understand something and mention something. We only relied on US oil about 2 years ago, meaning we could do it. We could be fully independent for oil. And the reality is, domestic oil production is easier to regulate, tax, and maintain over foreign oil. The revenue brought in from domestic oil sources and production will be put towards the funding, research, development, and implementation of green solutions, which will be our future plans. We will be green by 2050. Party Matrix. Drilling oil from lesser developed countries, inherently polluting their shores and subjugating their economies to be reliant on your business. Are you sure this falls in line with your anti-imperialist views? Because to me, that sounds like textbook imperialism.
And now for the final portion of the first round of the debate, we have our foreign policy closing statements. We've heard from all of our wonderful parties in depth through the questions and the answers that they provided. It's now time to sum up with closing statements. First up with their party's closing statement. You have 1 minute each to deliver your closing statements. Party Renaissance, you're first.
Party Renaissance will ensure the prioritization of diplomatic, peaceful solutions when possible. The United States has relied on their military to solve problems for far too long, and it's time for that reliance to end. Reinforcing not only social programs in the US, but also aiding those in need worldwide will be prioritized over the unnecessarily large military budget. We want to support global people by giving benefits to those manufacturing goods in the US to end our reliance on outsourced labor. Not only this, but government agencies will specifically be ending their usage of labor from foreign countries. All of these policies are not only beneficial for the citizens of America, but the citizens of the world. Thank you.
Party Disco.
Friends, teachers, fellow students, all of us here today have one thing in common, and that is a passion for the betterment of this world. Here at Party Disco, we are just as passionate as you. Through our policy that protects the sovereignty and independence of all nations, as well as the human rights of everybody, we have shown you our plans. And we have shown you why they are not only the best, but the most realistic. We have shown you that other parties have failed to comprehend basic international relations, like their gross misunderstanding of the 2014 NATO summit. How can we trust you to run our country? Together, we can create a more peaceful and prosperous tomorrow for all. Vote Party Disco and join us in our mission of betterment. Thank you.
Party Pantheon, you're next.
I like the podium, so. Party Pantheon believes the United States is an advocate for stability, that it can serve as a role model for what to do right. Party Pantheon refuses to let the US restructure the world order like Party Noir's complete reconstruction of NATO, which leaves our most important allies behind. Nor do we simply give non-answers like Party Matrix. So instead, move forward with our solutions. Let's move forward to better the lives of refugees. Move forward with a policy that respects the right of sovereign nations. Move forward to create a globe where A-push teachers say that our world is lucky, not just the United States. Our pillars hold the foundation for a brighter future. So tomorrow, vote Party Pantheon.
Noir, you're up.
Party Pantheon, at least we can agree on one thing: the podium is better. Many parties have come up and proposed solutions that are either unrealistic or will serve to worsen the problems that they promised to amend. At Party Noir, we are committed to finding solutions that prioritize the needs of those involved above our own. We firmly believe that it's time for the United States to lead the world through its diplomacy and not its military. It really is no mystery, and it doesn't take a detective to figure that out. Thank you very much.
Party Matrix.
To all attendees today, I would like to say not only thank you for giving me your time, but for dealing with my voice today. As you consider which party to show your support for and which party to mark on your ballot tomorrow, I want you to consider what an America and a world would look like under each party. Maybe a world would look ignorant, as Party Disco's would. Maybe a world would look like one where the military-industrial complex continues to rule America and the rest of the world, like with Party Pantheon. I'm sure that with enough forethought and consideration, you'll arrive at the conclusion that we offer the safest bet. Thus, I implore you, once again, join us. Join us and create a world where anything is possible, especially a world fair and equitable for everybody, where every single human has a chance. Last statement, this election has been kind of hectic. Foreign chairs, you guys have been the best. I'm out.
And it's Party Gambit closing the show for foreign policy.
I also like the podium. So, anyways, Party Gambit makes moves for political foresight with an emphasis on careful thought, Our policies focus on both the short and long terms. Here at Party Gambit, the values of diplomacy and compassion are central to our goals. Tomorrow, you will make a choice. A vote for Party Gambit is a vote for non-interventional policies that support democracy. It is a vote for the protection of peace and human rights. A vote for the preservation of our own climate. We made our move. Now it is your turn. Move with us for a brighter future. Thank you.
Okay, we are now at an intermission point before we begin the second round. You got 10 minutes? Stretch, get a bathroom break. We'll see you back in 10.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. We will now begin the second round of the debate. This section will focus on domestic policy and major issues facing Americans at home. Please welcome back to the stage our moderator, Superintendent Dr. Trujillo.
So if the first portion of the debate talked about problems confronting America around the world, the second part of the debate will focus on a world of problems and challenges that we have right here at home, including right here in the city of Tucson in our great state of Arizona. So we will now shift to a focus on domestic policy. And we will begin, as we began the first round, with each party receiving 1 minute to communicate their party's overall platform, or opening statement on its platform regarding domestic policy. So we will begin with Party Renaissance.
In modern United States, democracy has been forfeited for corporate interest. The well-being of the people is bought and sold for profit. The government protects lobbies over lives, and the political and economic institutions of our nation perpetuate cycles of inequality. I know that if I asked almost any one of you today, you would tell me how absolutely undemocratic and outdated these systems feel, how you don't feel represented, and how nothing gets done in politics. Party Renaissance is the dawn of a new democracy, one in which all of you will have the equal chance to participate in, regardless of race, gender, or economic status. A democracy in which the great policy ideals that you'll hear on the stage today would actually have a chance at passing, because you're the ones who could pass them. A dawn of a democracy that will promote progress and change, not fear it. So I urge you today, as we debate the policies that will have the chance to massively impact your everyday lives, to ask yourself whether you want these changes. And if you do, whether you want the decisions, like the right to an abortion, the cost of college, or laws about guns in schools, to be made solely by career politicians and lobbyists trying to make a buck, or if you would rather have a say. Thank you.
Party Disco.
I stand before you today honored to represent Party Disco and our unwavering commitment to equity, true equality for all. We believe that in a world where inequality persists, it is our responsibility to make the change. Party Disco values, above all else, the reform of antiquated systems that were never intended to serve all the people, such as current police and education systems. At Party Disco, we will create a just and equal world for all people. We envision a society where everyone has access to the resources and opportunities that they both need and deserve, regardless of their background or circumstance. To achieve this vision, we must come together as a collective force to work together towards positive change. Party Disco stands for the people. We stand for you. Thank you.
Party Pantheon.
Hi everyone. Party Pantheon's domestic platform is built upon the values that sustain our democracy. Hope, compromise, respect, and humanity We have proposed realistic, equitable, and sustainable remedies to the biggest issues facing our nation, and we have done so in creative ways that will work within the constitutional framework we were given. We envision an America in which everyone, from every background, has the opportunity to pursue their goals in a free, just, and caring society. And we recognize that this must start with housing our unhoused, with feeding our hungry, with educating our poor, and with protecting our environment and our natural resources. We will secure a future in which everyone's voice is heard and represented. Party Pantheon is ready, because who else can you count on to make these policies a reality? Who else but Party Pantheon? Thank you.
Party Noir.
Okay, alright. Oh man. Alright, okay. Party Noir's domestic platform aims to bring the roaring 20s back into this century. Now, when I say this, I'm not talking about the domestic policies of the 1920s. Heavens no. I'm talking about the spirit, the passion that drove the flapper movement, the Jazz Age, and the Harlem Renaissance. At Party Noir, that is what inspires each and every one of our policies. We will be daring with our social reform and make big leaps in healthcare, education, and gun regulation. We will be confident in our efforts to combat climate change, and we will bring prosperity to everyone, not just the ritzy 1%. We are raising taxes on multinational corporations, forcing them to pay the taxes that they've been skipping out on for years. As for the fossil fuel industry, well, we won't give them the skin off the grape, as we shift all of our focus to investing in renewable energy sources. Party Noir wants to bring this country policies that are just the bee's knees. Policies are both innovative and effective, and that is exactly what you will see here today. Thank you.
The Party Matrix.
I'd like to start off by saying Happy Black History Month. For too long, this country has been stuck in a feudal system, the ruling class dictating what to think. For too long, this country has inhibited the rights of citizens instead of allowing them to make this world sparkle. For too long, this country has maintained respect for our founders' intentions, but for who? The rich? The elite? For too long, this country has hidden the solutions to your mysteries. For too long, this country has made moves except those that benefit you. Party Matrix is here to bridge the inequities you experience. We aspire to make effective change throughout all aspects of our society, and the only thing you need to do is make a choice. To quote the movie itself, I can only show you the door. You're the one who has to walk through it. So make this journey with me and consider, what will you choose?
Party Gambit.
Here at Party Gambit, we move for what matters. We move for you. Our domestic policy focuses on the effect on you, the people. Today, you've heard from other parties on stage. You may wonder where their differences lie and how they plan to implement concrete change. At Party Gambit, we value our comprehensive approach to domestic policy. We leave no stone unturned. Our policies extend from individual pieces to the bigger picture, showing that the whole is truly more than the sum of its parts. At Party Gambit, we will work to reform our governmental systems, fighting against bureaucracy in Washington and extending the power back to the people. We will work to fight for the issues that matter, protecting the right to privacy and extending healthcare to all as a basic human right. But above all, we're committed to you, a notion that permeates every policy we write.
Okay, we will now move to the prepared question portion of the domestic policy segment of today's debate. Same as the foreign policy prepared questions. First party gets 45 seconds to initially respond, and then the second party gets 45 seconds to respond to the answer. So the first pair of parties, Matrix, you will be answering the initial question. Renaissance, you will be responding to the Matrix response. Each party, of course, gets 45 seconds. So Matrix, the United States is in the middle of a deadly drug crisis. With over 100,000 overdose deaths in 2022, the vast majority of these deaths are by opioids and synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Drug abuse, drug sale and distribution is not a new problem for the country. It is a cycle that repeats itself across generations. I was a child of the Say No to Drugs campaign of the Reagan administration. That has not worked. We have seen the Clinton administration's war on drugs fail. We have seen the Bush administration's war on drugs fail, on and on and on and on, and here we are. In my day, it was cocaine and crack. Today, it's fentanyl and opioids. Same problem, different drugs. Here we go. If elected, what will your party do to combat the addiction and overdose crisis in our country?
To read this quote once again, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, we could disrupt those communities, arrest their leaders, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Words from Nixon's domestic affairs assistant. The fact is, our inability to deal with the current drug crisis stems from the history of treating drugs as a vehicle for moral condemnation of black and Hispanic American communities. In order for us to solve this problem, we must not only decriminalize drug use, as well as legalize marijuana, but provide provide $5 billion to funding addiction recovery and research, increase access to Narcan and other life-saving antagonist drugs, and instating prescription monitoring programs, all covered by a universal health care program, Matrix Care. So, in addition to programs for searching for reparations for black people, as well as reforming police, we'll find ways to end this history. Thank you.
Renaissance with response.
Party Matrix hit the nail on the head when they addressed drugs as a way of shifting blame to black and marginalized communities. But they don't address the root cause of the problem. Opioid crisis does not happen because black people are being incarcerated for drugs. It's not even the black people that are addicted to these drugs. It's 70% of the opioid crisis is middle-class white women who are being overprescribed drugs by the healthcare industry. So we have a plan for comprehensive universal health care to combat drug addiction with rehabilitation and stop the overprescription of opioid drugs. We also have a comprehensive criminal justice reform to implement restorative justice, to stop marginalized communities from being blamed for this drug crisis, so that marginalized people and people who are incarcerated for drug crimes will no longer be sent to prison, but will be given comprehensive and constructive sentences by their communities. Thank you.
Question number 2. Pantheon, this is for your direct response. Party Noir, you will be able to respond to Pantheon's answer. The United States currently spends over $50 billion a year on illegal drug enforcement and interception. However, the legalization of marijuana has gained momentum in many states across the nation. As the legalization of this drug and other drugs is supported by a growing number of Americans in many states. What is your party's stance on illicit drug regulation?
Thank you so much for allowing us to answer this question. The first step of our plan is that we're going to decriminalize all drugs under the law. We believe that people with incurable disease should not be imprisoned but should instead be allowed to enter rehabilitation and re-entry programs. This will greatly decrease our justice system spending on the imprisonment of those on drug possession charges, and we will release all those previously incarcerated. Next, we're going to legalize marijuana, but not just marijuana, also psilocybin and LSD across the country. These drugs have never caused a single overdose death. All the deaths caused by them are through lacing because of lack of regulation, because of their illegal status. By legalizing them, we can regulate the avenues and we can make sure the lace deaths go down significantly. Thank you.
Okay, so here at Party Noir, our plan to combat the illicit drug use in this country is by decriminalizing all drugs, like Party Pantheon, as well as legalizing marijuana, but also creating a pathway to recovery for those who suffer addiction. If someone is caught using illicit drugs, rather than facing incarceration, they have options. They can either pay a minor fine that would be put towards funding rehabilitation centers, or would be checked into a rehab facility. We also plan to implement vast reform to these rehab facilities. Firstly, we plan to provide them with more funding via the SAMHSA agency, which would include rehab, and we also include rehab treatment in our expanded Medicaid, so that these treatment centers are much more accessible to have further outreach. We will also be reforming these centers themselves, so they have a wide variety of programs and treatment both within the facility as well as support outside of this facility. Thank you.
Our next pair of parties up to answer question number 3. Party Disco, you are going to be asked the question, and then Party Gambit, you'll have an opportunity to respond to Disco's answer. Currently, 79% of energy produced in the U.S. comes from non-renewable fuels and energy sources. What is your party's stance on the use of fossil fuels compared to alternatives, and how will you implement energy policy?
Party Disco has a clear goal for the future: 100% green energy by 2050. We will achieve this by supporting carbon capture technologies and implementing a carbon tax starting at $15 per metric ton, gradually increasing to $40 by 2050. This will encourage companies to shift towards renewable energy sources and control their carbon emissions. Further, we will be using domestic oil production to achieve energy independence and fund our alternative energy ventures. We realize the downsides of drilling domestic oil, but the reality is domestic oil is easier to regulate, tax, and maintain than foreign oil. We can't abandon fossil fuels in their entirety, but we will use them as a means to an end, a vehicle to a future of clean, sustainable energy. Thank you.
Party Gambit recognizes the need for a strong stance. Unlike Party Matrix, we will not settle for a gradual compromise. We are specific in the alternative energy sources we will use. We will be completely reliant on renewable and nuclear energy by 2038. In order to do this, we will use diversified energy grid systems. We will utilize existing infrastructure, such as hydroelectricity on dams not currently in use. We will also be implementing offshore wind farms and solar panels along the whole country. We will look specifically at the place which needs renewable energy, as well as a carbon emissions tax of 47 per metric ton.
That's time.
Thank you.
All right, next question. And Party Renaissance, you are going to be answering the initial question. Pantheon, you will have an opportunity to respond. The concept of mass shootings is a grimly American phenomenon. It's not new. On August 1st, 1966, it was Charles Whitman who first climbed into the Texas Bell Tower at the University of Texas, aimed his .35 caliber rifle, and fired indiscriminately for 96 minutes, ultimately killing 16. The University of Texas shooting in 1966 ushered in a grim 50-year-plus period of mass shootings across the nation, of course culminating most recently with the tragedy in Monterey Park. The number of mass shootings per year has steadily increased since. Previous administrations have largely left gun regulation to the states. Will your party pursue federal gun legislation or support regulations at the state level in recognition of states' rights?
At Party Renaissance, we believe the Second Amendment is a right to a well-regulated militia, not the unchecked right for everyone to buy weapons of war. So we have two main strategies. One, promoting training for gun owners. This has proven to be the most effective solution in targeting countries with high rates of gun ownership. Two, exploring the option for declaring gun violence a public health emergency. This way, we can allocate federal funds more effectively to local communities to be able to address gun violence in their communities. We also have to recognize the NRA is the main reason we cannot get comprehensive gun reform passed. In our democratic plan, we have a plan to eliminate the power of institutions like the NRA and who are taking your voice out of this issue. Thank you.
Party Renaissance neglects to acknowledge that guns already exist in our society. And no matter what restrictions they place on the purchase of firearms, guns will continue to exist in our society. That's why Party Pantheon is implementing our bullet control program. The purchase and sale of bullets has gone almost entirely unregulated for decades, and Party Pantheon will ensure that no one who wouldn't qualify for gun purchase, whether or not they already own a gun, will not be able to purchase ammunition. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This one's going to be for Party Gambit. Party Matrix, you'll have an opportunity to respond. The criminal justice system in the United States has faced increased criticism in recent years. America has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and law enforcement is often overextended into trivial and often nonviolent matters. How will your party address the incarceration crisis in criminal justice?
Party Gambit will begin to address the crisis by starting at the root, the school-to-prison pipeline system. We recognize the need for reform in our juvenile detention centers, as well as eliminating all zero-tolerance policies at schools. We will also focus on drug decriminalization in order to solve the issue of overcrowding in our prisons. Because of this, we understand that it disproportionately affects certain communities, and that is why we will decriminalize drugs. We will end mandatory minimum sentencing in order to have more accurate justice employed. Party Gambit will enact this change for you, the people.
I'm sorry, Party Gambit. But your criminal justice reform is just not comprehensive enough. In addition to all those reforms you mentioned, Party Matrix will be doing the same while adding replacing cash bail with presumption of release, except in cases of violent offenders. We'll recreate federal parole, which was banned in 1984 by the infamous racist Strom Thurmond. We'll also be preventing regional inequalities with distributing public defender funding by statewide basis rather than a regional basis. We'll be banning private prisons also because no one should have an interest in jailing more people. Lastly, we'll be implementing transformative justice that involves communities and victims in constructive sentencing. But we have to remember that also, as MLK said, as I walk among the desperate, rejected, and angry, telling them that violence would not solve their problems, they asked, what about Vietnam? As if America wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its own problems.
And that's time.
We must remember that to end violence on American streets, we must end it on Palestinian streets, on Salvadorian streets,
And
on all these streets of the world.
And our next question, Party Noir, you have the opportunity to respond first, and Disco, you'll be responsible for the response to Party Noir. In 2021, on average, a woman made 82% of the income a man would make, which would equate to 82 cents for every dollar a man would make. With this gap, a woman could potentially lose an average of over $100,000 over the course of 10 years. With this information in mind, what policies will your party support to ensure that the gender wage gap between men and women will reduce over time?
Well, the disparity in women's income is largely attributed to a woman's inability under this administration to choose when to become a parent. That's why Party Noir is implementing plans to legalize abortion for everyone. This way, women have the ability to choose when they want to become a parent and when to put their careers in front of things that society would like us to put in front.
Disco with the response.
Party Disco more than recognizes the inequity of the gender wage gap. We also know that wage gap especially disadvantages women of color and women who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. This is because often, single women of the aforementioned categories do not have the resources to afford childcare, causing them to make the decision, caring for their child and losing their job, or making their shift and neglecting their child. So, at Party Disco, we know that early education is essential to many women with children. This allows their children to receive both care and an education while their mother is at work. Under our three-part lower educational reform system, we support Strong Start for America's Children, which focuses on making this very idea an improved reality. And this is only the start. Thank you.
We will now return to the inter-party question portion of the program. Same rules apply. The party I call on has an opportunity to call on the party of their choice to pose a question. That party will have a minute to answer, and the questioning party will get a 45-second opportunity to rebut. So first up, it is Party Gambit.
Okay, so this question is for Party Pantheon. Okay, so included in your slew of mildly arbitrary excise taxes is a departure tax on international travel that is generating you $312 billion in revenue. However, we at Party Gambit went and checked this math using data from transportation.gov, and we got that this tax would only likely make you around a bit over $1 billion. So basically, this is less than 1/3% of the original revenue you claim to have it making you. Additionally, this means that your budget surplus is now a deficit. How can the constituents trust you to fix the issue of national debt with this new information.
I agree. All right. So Party Pantheon has introduced a number of creative excise taxes. This transportation tax is one of those, but we have a number of other ones. For example, the financial transaction tax, which is estimated to generate $390 billion per year. We also have taxes on golf courses to target the super rich, and this transportation tax is one of those. Our calculations did add up and said that they would make $312 billion in revenue. I don't know where you got your numbers. I would love to.
And that's actually the time, so Gambit gets to respond.
Let it be known that there was nothing on the computer.
So with the whole ransom, this is not part of my response, this is a clarification. With the whole ransom Wi-Fi thing, my computer won't connect to the Wi-Fi, but I do have the number and I will happily show it to Reed after the debate. Okay, so here's my rebuttal here. Okay, so Party Pantheon has created these excise taxes they claim are targeting the activities of the super rich. However, they fail to seriously reform corporate taxes or other corporate tax loopholes that primarily target those ultra rich. Additionally, they don't seem to acknowledge that the rich actually make most of their money through investments. They don't seem to have any capital gains tax reform. Furthermore, they seem to have forgotten about the issue of the debt completely. They're not paying their debt interest maintenance payment as part of mandatory government spending. This means that their new deficit is increasing by hundreds of billions of more dollars. What policies from Party Pantheon can we trust?
It is now Party Disco's turn on the stage.
This question is for Party Renaissance. Party Renaissance, your restructure of the political system, moreover, your entire platform, hinges on the idea of making it easier to pass constitutional amendments. However, this idea in itself requires a constitutional amendment. How do you expect 2/3 of the bureaucrats in Congress to pass the initial amendment that strips them of their own power and sets their jobs on a gradual decline to nothing? In other words, how do you expect 2/3 of congressmen today to sign off on a document that reads, "I don't want my job anymore"?
All right, I have two answers for this. First, our entire platform doesn't hinge on this thing. This is just an addition that none of the other parties have. Our policies, you can read them for yourself, are comprehensive within the constitutional system as our first step. But that's only a first step. It's true, constitutional amendments do hinge on making constitutional amendments. But the thing is that this is not a radical idea. Both Republicans and Democrats alike have been advocating the change of the Constitution for years. Already 17 states have advocated for a constitutional convention. That's more than an amendment. So, with enough political pressure from the people, along with our bolstering of local governments and power to the people through local governments, political leaders will feel the pressure to pass just one amendment, just to make the amendment process easier. That's it. That means making a referendum so that you can write your own constitutional amendments and propose them. With this in place,
plan in place, then we can lay the foundation for real change that lasts for generations. Thank you.
Next time.
I'd just like to note they said just one amendment, like that's so easy, but I'm not even gonna touch on that. If these sortitions are given as much influence and work with the efficiency you claim, you have a problem. At any point in this strenuous three-phase reform process, your random representatives, your random 435 that are not elected, can be bought up by corporations. You claim you want to take the money out of politics, but this renaissance seems to be bringing us back to the Dark Ages.
All right, Party Pantheon, you're up.
You better strut,
Party matrix. It's no secret that your tax brackets have been embroiled in controversy since the very early in this debate process. And though you had the opportunity to amend them, you still elected to place a massive burden on low and middle class Americans, as well as introducing a 70% federal income tax on the top 2%. How do you plan to address the concerns of the middle class with your incredibly high taxes? And how do you plan to stop the upper class from taking their business abroad?
Oh, Party Pantheon. We will be raising the tax bracket on the top income earners to 70% and implementing a progressive wealth tax. But my real problem is not our budget, but yours. Your healthcare system is going to fail because you are getting rid of Medicaid. Clearly, whoever wrote that part of your budget did not understand that Medicaid is 40% funded from the states, and by doing this, you are actually cutting healthcare insurance for Americans. You are not increasing. Your universal healthcare system is not going to work because you're actually reducing it by $200 billion. So people, that your claims that you will be able to have insurance for all or healthcare for all are purely just wrong.
Party Matrix, I appreciate your volatile attempt to dodge the question, but we have expanded Medicare to all citizens within the US. That makes Medicaid obsolete. We also, but let's get to the real question. Let's talk about their tax brackets. So I have 3 examples for you. They're taxing the top 2% 70%. The top 2% starts at $300,000 in revenue, but let's start at $500K. With the income tax combined with Social Security, these people will be taking home $106,000, $45,000. They're being taxed 20%. It's going down to $33,000. And the average teacher salary in Arizona, $50,000, is being taxed 25%. They will be taking home $34,000. Your teachers will not be making a living wage. Thank you.
Okay, Party Noir.
This question is also for Party Matrix. In your new and improved platform that you so graciously gave to us days after the original deadline, you state that you will pay back all foreign debts by 2050. How do you plan on paying back these debts by the projected date?
So in our budget repayment plan, we are primarily targeting or directing the surplus towards foreign debt. The idea is that we want less reliance on other countries so that they don't have a word in how we are paying off our budget. In addition to that, we're adding 40,000 new IRS agents. We're adding a progressive wealth tax on billionaires, which is estimated to cut billionaire wealth in half in the next 15 years. And frankly, everything about the budget is fine. And by the way, mind you, they continue saying that we changed the platform. The platform is unchanged. We fixed a simple calculation error, and we want to move on. So how about, instead of worrying about numbers in the budget, we start worrying about your policy.
Well, it might just be a glitch in the matrix, but with your current projected surplus, you would need to direct 100% of their federal surplus for the next 52 years, paying back foreign debts only in 2075. So maybe there's something is wrong with your budget. For being a party based off a simulation, it seems like you're really not that good with numbers.
Okay, Party Renaissance, you're up.
All right. Party Pantheon proudly claims that their policy is, and I quote, built on a deep appreciation for the institutions that have sustained our nation since its founding, and that they want to maintain respect for the founders' intentions and ideals. Yet they also say they want to implement change within the Constitution. First of all, let me clarify. Which founding fathers' ideals are you referring to that you want to maintain? Is it the enslavement of Black Americans? Is it the oppression of women? Or the genocide against Native Americans? And second of all, how would you plan to even attempt to make the necessary changes that we need to see today within a system that upholds those ideals I just mentioned and a status quo that has prevented progress and equality throughout our entire history?
Party Renaissance, we are maintaining the founders' ideals of checks and balances on our democratic system. Party Renaissance's proposed democratic changes do not provide any checks or balances. They are putting 435 randomly selected citizens from all over the country in charge of the nation for 2 years. There is no opt-out. They are not going to be paid. They do not have to, they never say if they have to quit their jobs or move to DC. These people are not elected, and they do not speak for the entirety of the population. And there are no checks and balances. Party Pantheon emphasizes the founders' ideals of checks and balances, not of slavery. We have a variety of policies that combat racial discrimination, but Party Pantheon neglected this in their statement. We are also going to be we're maintaining democracy. Party Renaissance is abolishing it.
Accuracies of that statement, I cannot even begin to describe. We have a comprehensive system for checks and balances within an elected body and a sortition body. We have judicial reforms that the Supreme Court cannot strip away your rights. We still have an elected president by ranked choice voting and are implementing federal clean elections. You can research all of these things on our platform. Also, we do have an opt-out system. So all the things that they said against our thing are void. The other thing is, as much as we could, I wish we could institute change within our systems that are literally built to actively prevent it from changing. You know as much as me that this hasn't worked. With abortion rights, with gun violence, you name it. We cannot keep trying the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It's time to change. By the way, elected officials, they don't represent you.
And
what is the
time.
point of having elections if your voice aren't represented
And
anyway?
that's time.
You will be able to represent yourself better than any elected official could in this day and age.
Party Matrix, you're up.
In our tradition of our two-question-long discussions, I have a question for Party Noir. Right now, if we take a look at your budget, let me remind you, the corporate income tax today in America is at 21%. Party Noir wants to raise this to 50% the day they enter office. This is estimated to raise $1.4 trillion in tax revenue, ignoring the fact that extracting such a large amount of money from corporations tomorrow would lead to a massive economic concentration, the effects of which would not be seen by them, but would be seen by Black people, Hispanic people, and everybody else who suffers from economic marginalization. Thank you.
Once again, Party Matrix defending corporations. How our tax works is that we're doing a capital flow tax, meaning we're taxing the flow of capital to get overseas money. We're going to close loopholes. We're cracking down on corporations and taking away the money they're trying to hide overseas. That's how we generate so much revenue. We're going to protect low-income corporations, small family businesses, but this is how we crack down on the rich. We're going to take the money we get from this tax and we're going to put it towards healthcare. We're going to put it towards housing assistance. We're going to put it towards fixing poverty. That is what you get when you vote for Party Noir.
Thanks for the comment about Party Matrix supporting corporations. I don't remember where in our policy we said that, but regardless, moving on. The corporate flow tax, or capital flow tax, I should say, is actually an economic adjustment used to balance world trade from country to country. It is used to, for example, adjust the dollar in managing credit balance checks. It is not used to generate revenue, and there's actually no source that you can find that suggests anything that a capital flow tax would generate money near the values that Party Noir has suggested. You have built your budget on lies, on deceit and deception, and you want to tell us that we have a bad budget? I digress.
Well, I have some good news. By popular demand, we are going to do a bonus round of inter-party questions. As much as we enjoy the prepared questions, and in the interest of time, and as highly entertaining and passionate as the inter-party questions have been throughout the competition, we want to go straight to our next inter-party question portion, do another round of it. So here we go. So same rules apply, and we're going to go right to Party Noir.
This is how you tax the rich effectively, with corporate flow taxes that effectively target corporations that are taking money from you. Party Matrix would instead like to tax your people earning in the top 2%, which I know is hard to rationalize, but that is making $300,000. Their tax policies also negate people who are in lower percentiles are taxed lower, but they are making more money because they have no way to counteract the issue of it.
Matrix, if there's a question in there, here's your response. This is your response time.
This is my response time?
Yes. Okay. Was there a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Justify taxing people 70%.
I'm taxing the top 2% of earners. I thought this was something we agreed that we want to tax the rich. And so this, along with our Taxing Extreme Wealth Act, which again adds a graded tax to the wealthiest class of people in America, is meant to limit the influence of the richest people in this country. Alongside that, we have the Dismantle the Electoral Matrix Act, which prevents corporations from influencing our electoral process. Again, this capital flow tax is fuzzy math. It doesn't make sense in reality. Again, I can explain to you, any of you can go on your phone and Google capital flow tax. It doesn't exist. It is an adjustment for foreign capital coming into the United States. Taxing that would be like taxing air. Thank you.
Now, Party Noir, you have an opportunity to respond. 45 seconds.
How about this? Since Party Matrix is so convinced that we're trying to tax air, right after this debate, we'll publish our source, our paper, that says that capital flow tax is a tax. And it'll tax the movement of money over to professionals and experts have said that it'll increase the tax base, the number of corporations we're taxing by 50%. That's holding corporations accountable. During the rest of our time, we'd like to point out Party Matrix's departure tax. They say they're going to raise $300 billion from a $10 per airplane ticket tax. You would need 30 billion airplane tickets. Are you aware there's only 8 billion people living on this earth?
Okay, Party Matrix, the stage is yours to pose a question to a party of your choice, and that party will be able to respond.
We meant to address it to Pantheon for the departure tax. Yeah.
Oh, was it Pantheon? Okay. So Pantheon may respond.
You don't need to respond. That wasn't a dedicated question.
Okay.
They weren't even answering the question they were asking.
We're going to move to Matrix. And as a reminder, Matrix can ask a question of their choice to a party of their choice. That party will have an opportunity to respond, and then Matrix will have an opportunity to rebut. So let's kick it off. Matrix, you're up.
This question is for Party Pantheon because I just want a little bit of clarification on how your healthcare system is going to work. So you're getting rid of Medicaid, which is going to remove the program that we currently have where states fund 40% of Medicaid. So you're moving to Medicare, which is completely funded by the federal government, but you are paying, I will call Renaissance out for this one. They are actually accurate in their budget when they say $2.9 trillion is the cost of creating universal health care in our country, but you only have $1.6 trillion. That is, you are off by $1 trillion in your budget to fund health care. How do you, what is this disparity all about?
First of all, like Reed addressed earlier, we are expanding Medicare to cover every American, which renders Medicaid completely obsolete. That is why we are removing funding from Medicaid into our expanded Medicare program. Our universal health care program will cover basic baseline services for every United States citizen. That includes vision and dental care, preventative screenings, annual checkups, and more. But if people desire further coverage or additional services, they will have the opportunity to consult private providers. This makes it so that every American can make the healthcare choices that work best for their families and best for them. And it protects those who would previously have gone uninsured and uncared for. Thank you.
And Matrix with the response.
Once again, I think that Party Pantheon is confused about the structure of the current healthcare system in the United States, again, on how Medicaid and Medicare works, because they want to provide coverage for over 100 million new people, but they don't have the money to do it. So what's gonna happen here? I don't know. It's really a mystery because they still struggle to tell the difference between Greek and Roman. I don't know what to tell you. They couldn't tell you the difference between Julius Caesar and a Caesar salad.
Party Renaissance, the floor is yours.
So I know we got kind of sidetracked with the budget, but I'm going to switch the conversation back to the issues that matter. Party Matrix continually, throughout their platform, identifies a central problem in our world today: American imperialism and the deep negative effects of capitalism. Although it's clear that one of their main ideals is to reduce and eliminate imperialism, and they do begin to pursue this on a foreign level, Party Matrix's platform is severely lacking in a main component of addressing imperialism abroad, and that is the central domestic roots of capitalism. How will you extend your ideology into real action by combating capitalism domestically and promoting anti-imperialism in the United States?
And that is for Party Matrix to respond.
I actually do believe that we contain everything it takes to combat American imperialism within our platform. For one, we have both the International Workers and Sovereign Rights Charters. These, again, are legally binding codes that apply to leaders, businessmen, corporations, and other organizations within America. So, for example, if you were to say Apple uses labor from child cobalt mines in the Congo, you would be able to sue Apple directly for their involvement in that supply chain, and then Apple would be required to provide actual remedy and relief to those people, making sure that they have a fair wage, safe working conditions, etc. This is the primary component of economic imperialism, and is something that neither you address or any of the other parties up here address. Thank you.
Party Renaissance with the rebuttal.
Now, what Party Matrix completely fails to understand is that we do have a policy on outsourced labor, and in fact, it is probably the best on the stage. Now, outsourced labor is an issue, we can all agree. It has led to exploitative jobs in countries that are struggling already. But our solution is simple. We want to, first, tax subsidies that are owned by US corporations overseas. This will remove the benefit of having corporations bought out by US corporations that exist in places like China or Taiwan or Mexico. Second, we will begin our we will begin benefiting domestic labor by implementing a US manufacturing bank. This will only loan to companies that want to manufacture in the US, stopping the need for outsourced labor.
That's the time.
Thank you.
All right, Party Pantheon, you're up.
Party Gambit, wow, okay. So one does not have to scroll down far on your platform to discover blatant violations of the US Constitution. Your first policy, your media regulation policy, said that your administration will collaborate with private companies to regulate speech on social media. And then it says, wait for it, it says that you're gonna implement re-education. Re-education for journalists, that sounds pretty interesting to me. So tell us, Party Gambit, how is your entire media regulation policy not a direct violation of the First Amendment's guarantee to freedom of speech and freedom to the press? Because right now, it sounds like you are cannonballing into the deep end of fascism. Thank you.
Thank you, Party Pantheon, but I think you got caught in the weeds a little bit of it. Something that was important to me throughout this process was ensuring the constitutionality of all of our things, all of our policies. So this is why I have my pocket constitutions. Shout out Mr. McCain and Mr. Our media regulation policy doesn't seek to actually limit the media on these websites. Instead, we're establishing a new pundit division where we're working to fact-check sources and show if they are reliable. Additionally, we're working to improve media literacy because really addressing the problems with misinformation starts in our schooling system. We teach kids how to tell the difference between fact and fiction. We are not looking to regulate the corporations directly, but have our own governmental agency where we provide additional info to have informed consumers that can make their own political and social decisions.
And Pantheon with a rebuttal.
To loosely quote the great Peter Griffin, this is almost as bad as the time that George Orwell wrote 1984. Now Party Gambit plans to introduce a government regulatory service that decides what is biased. That doesn't sound like it could turn partisan at all. It doesn't sound like it could be used to limit the free speech of anybody. None of this stuff that they're talking about was explicitly mentioned in their platform. They simply said that they wanted to... Be quiet! They simply stated that they wanted to retrain journalists to prevent biases by the government and regulate speech on social media, which the government does not have a right to do. Thank you.
All right, Party Disco, the stage is yours.
My question is going to Matrix. In your so-called Oracle Act, you propose ideas like pooling state funding for public schools and distributing them equally, banning zero-tolerance policies, and so forth. How do you plan on implementing these changes, given that education is not under the jurisdiction of the federal government? Another constitutional amendment?
And Party Matrix with the response.
I would just like to start off by saying that in our platform we say that these are state level adjustments, but we are talking about the Oracle Act, which will help bridge the gaps and the inequities that exist in our current system. And it is a three-pronged approach. This program will increase tutoring to low-income students. It will raise the annual salary of teachers and incentivize teachers to go into their career field, make all state funding pooled into one area and will be distributed equally throughout the state. Currently, the biggest inequity is through the way that taxes are collected and distributed locally to schools. That's why in Catfoot they have better facilities than we do here. And that is what Party Matrix is here doing. We are here to fight for the people. We are here to fix the inequities that you experience on a daily basis.
And Party Disco with the rebuttal.
If that is the case, we would love to know how you plan on implementing state-level modification of curriculum, considering that it's still not under the federal government's jurisdiction. At Party Disco, we plan on utilizing federal incentives to the states with the implementation of our three-part lower educational reform system. We'll push schools to adopt comprehensive sex education, where we will absolutely include our LGBTQ+ relevant information. We also understand the importance of creating inclusive, safe spaces for neurodivergent students, so we will push districts to mandate intensive training to better serve their students. Finally, we want to place an emphasis on mental health education in schooling. We find that these topics are often not talked about, like abuse and addiction, and we think that giving our students the tools that they need to handle these by themselves would serve them much better. Thank you.
And it's Party Gambit's time.
This is a question for Party Noir. In your platform, you state that Party Noir will commit to covering the 30 million uninsured under Medicaid. We at Party Gambit also view healthcare as an essential service that should be accessible to all. Party Noir, who exactly does your healthcare system cover? And does your system reform any issues within the current healthcare system?
Party Gambit, I'm so glad you asked. Here at Party Noir, we're committed to covering every uninsured person in America, all 30 million of them. We're going to introduce federal legislation to amend Medicaid guidelines to mandate states to cover every uninsured person in their borders. We're going to finance programs which improve education to try to train more doctors. We're going to build new hospitals, and we're going to reduce wait times. At Party Noir, we think healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and that's exactly what our policy reflects. Thank you.
That's a lot of claims coming from Party Noir. There are several fundamental issues with your healthcare system, Party Noir. First, you failed to reform Medicaid, which is at best providing questionable healthcare for all individuals. Secondly, you failed to specify exactly who you are covering as uninsured. And finally, your policy is incentivizing millions of people to become uninsured as the government will be providing free healthcare. This will put costs through the roof. The only way to expand coverage in a cost-efficient manner is to create a non-profit public healthcare system. We will be doing so in our policy, GamCare, which will also provide universal social healthcare for all. It appears healthcare is one mystery that Party Noir can't solve.
We have now reached the final stage of not only the domestic policy segment of the competition, but actually the debate itself. And this is closing statements for domestic policy, the chance for parties to encapsulate their platform and their cases to the voters in 1 minute or less. They will have an opportunity, as they did during the foreign policy closing statements, to sum up. And up first with their domestic policy closing statement is Party Renaissance.
The bedrock of Party Renaissance of our domestic policy is to strengthen real democracy and lay the foundations for change. National citizens' assemblies and neighborhood governments work hand in hand with our concrete social solutions, like universal health care, free public college, and comprehensive criminal justice reform to directly stand up to corporate power and our biggest institutional challenges. How will we protect your unalienable rights to reproductive health care, to safety, and to education within a political structure that has consistently failed us time and time again with its archaic capitalist foundations? Real change starts on a local level. It starts with you. It starts with your families and your friends and your communities deciding that you will no longer accept the oppressive nature of our systems. Now imagine you've seen and been a part of movements like this, with the walkout, March for Our Lives, the climate strikes. Now imagine we can actually give those communities, movements, real strength and power in standing up to their oppressors. This is what Party Renaissance promises to do.
And that's time.
No policy will solve all our institutional problems right away, but at least we're trying. Nothing is worse than not trying.
Party disco.
I'm going to start by saying that I think all of you here today have felt the injustice of being slighted on any level. At Party Disco, we ask you to imagine that feeling and to multiply it. Imagine being slighted simply because of your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status. Many of you already know this feeling all too well. This is why we at Party Disco have made it our mission to shape this nation into truly becoming one for the people, one for all of you. We are not going to be like Matrix and lie to you about the constitutionality of our propositions. We're not going to elect people like Renaissance who may not actually want to lead you. So, join us as we make possible what should have been done a long, long time ago. Join us at the disco. Thank you.
Party Pantheon.
It's been a long day, and you've heard so many policy proposals, but look, we all fundamentally agree, right? The economy should be better. The environment should be protected. People should be treated with dignity and compassion. We are all in agreement on all of this. What we find ourselves disagreeing on is how these problems should be solved. You know that putting random, unelected people in charge of our most important legislative body is not the way to solve these problems. You know that forcing journalists to undergo government re-education is not the way to solve these problems. And you know that taxing our poorest citizens 10% of their annual income is not the way to solve these problems. You know this. Party Pantheon is sensible, realistic, progressive, and conscientious. We won't use you to promote ridiculous and far-fetched policies. You know this. Now vote.
Party Noir.
During the course of this debate, I am certain that we have proven that the solutions are no mystery, and I hope that we have effectively uncovered them for you all today. I want to summarize what makes our domestic policy stand out. We have unwavering support for abortion access. We have planned to crack down on drug companies and to support communities that have been negatively affected by drug use. We will lift up the poor with our minimum wage policies and our strict attacks on taxes for the rich and for corporations. Party Noir stands for effective, inspiring solutions that We stand for effective, inspiring solutions to problems that face America today. We stand for innovation rather than idealism. We stand for progress rather than permanence. And above all, we stand for you.
Party Matrix.
Statement is directed to the junior class, our voters in this election. Domestic issues are not simply issues that happen here in the United States, but issues that affect you every day. Addressing these issues requires also addressing their critical foundations. Gun control, for example, where 61% of black Americans 61% of all gun homicides kill black Americans, or we are 12 times more likely to die by gun homicide than white people. Black people do not want your trees, they do not want your green spaces. Addressing these issues requires police reform, criminal justice reform, addressing the lack of material wealth that black people have in this country, whilst also addressing the issues that plague us abroad. We believe that this world is a place where anything is possible, but all you need to do is take that first step. A step towards truth, a step towards justice, and a step towards real, tangible change. And that step is your vote. Thank you.
And rounding us out is Party Gambit.
Party Gambit is your strategic move for the future. We understand the cyclical and repetitive nature of politics, and we are dedicated to creating effective policies that fight bureaucracy, working to empower the voices of those who have been historically left out by our government. Party Gambit is focused on both where we've been and where we can go. Through bold yet thoughtful moves, we're committed to creating a future where everyone is represented. When voting, we encourage you to think about what you want in your government. Move with us tomorrow. Vote Party Gambit.
How about a round of applause again for all of these outstanding young leaders? Sir? So, of course, in the first part of the debate, we talked a lot about China and Russia and Iran and North Korea. And I think sometimes the perception is the greatest threat to American democracy and American freedom in the world is external. It's the Iranians. Are they going to have a nuclear weapon? It's the North Koreans. Are they going to escalate nuclear warfare? It's a Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's China's burgeoning power and emergence as the next world superpower. But the threat to American democracy and freedom, it's not external. It's right here at home. Because you see, it's the breakdown of civility and civil discourse in this country around the issues that resonate and matter to citizens across this land that pose the greatest threat. When we lose the ability to understand the ideas, the belief systems, and the opinions of those who think differently than we do on any issue, whether it's gun control, immigration, or healthcare, we lose the ability to participate effectively and powerfully in American democracy. And all we're left with is our tribe. Those who look like us, think like us, believe like us. We retreat to the cable news networks that think like us, talk like us, give us the ideas we want to hear. We surround ourselves with those that tell us we're always right. And that is the great threat to the great society that I believe we still are and we still can be, though not perfect. So thank you again, everybody. This was an absolute pleasure to be here. And I will turn it back over to Mr. Olenek.
Please stay with me for just a minute, but this does conclude the 2023 UHS Senior Debate. I'd like to... We have like 5 minutes before the bell rings. First and foremost, I would like to give a huge round of applause to all of our party leaders for the hours of dedication they have put into this contest. I would like to especially thank Dr. Trujillo for moderating today's event. I would like to thank our faculty, staff, and administration for supporting this event, even though it turns the school sideways for several weeks. Thank you. And I would like to once again shout out stage crew, without whom we would not have this event. Finally, please join us for the culminating activity for this event. Our inaugural ball will take place at the Tucson JCC this coming Saturday, February 4th. Hope to see you there to have some fun and recognize the winner of tomorrow's elections. UHS Juniors, tomorrow is voting day. Please come down to LL8 to vote before school, during lunch, and after school until 3:45. Polls close at 3:45. We will then count and announce the winners.